right, good morning, everyone. I think you probably have all been muted now, so we can start the service. And David will play our in-gathering music, We Are, by Ysaye Barnwell. Thank you, David. Good morning. Welcome to Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church, meeting here in cyberspace this morning. I'm Clark Ritz. My pronouns are he and him. I'm on the team of worship associates that works with the minister, church staff, and others to bring you worship services, even when it's best we don't meet in person. We strive to be a welcoming community. We are from all over. Our families have come from different countries. Among us, we have a range of sexualities. We have a range of shapes and sizes and appearances and identities. We have different physical abilities from one another. And we've been waiting for you to join us. Join us here. And speaking of here, we acknowledge that though we are not in our physical church space, that the land where our church building stands is the ancestral home of the Piscataway people, who have a history in the region stretching from the Potomac River towards the Chesapeake Bay, going back thousands of years. Whatever brought you online this morning, we're so glad that you decided to share the morning with us. Before we move into worship, let's review our Zoom skills. Find your mute button, the microphone icon, and make sure you are muted. Please remain muted throughout the service. Find the bubble for your chat screen, looking around the edge of your screen. There are different places on your screen depending on what kind of device you're using. You can set your own pace reading the chats by scrolling up and down. You may also be able to change what you see on the screen from speaker to gallery view, which can let you see more than one person at a time. You'll probably want speaker view for the service. Just a reminder that we are recording on Facebook Live and Zoom. Right now, in chat, please say how many people are in attendance via your connection, one if it's just you. That way we can get a sense of how many are attending the service today. And if you're visiting for the first or second time, I invite you to post who you are in chat and say hello if you feel comfortable doing so. After service today, we will offer coffee hour breakout rooms, At the end of the service, you'll receive a pop-up invitation to join a breakout room with a few other folks grouped together at random. If, on the other hand, you'd like to stay for a follow-on discussion of the service, you may decline the breakout room pop-up and stay in the main Zoom room. One quick announcement. One of the links in the Search for a Developmental Minister announcement in this week's Continuum was broken. Please see the announcement on the church's website for the correct link. We will soon light our chalice. After that, you will hear Mary Rooker drum as we show images of Kwanzaa's past at Paint Branch, and then Carmelita Carter-Sykes will call us to worship. And now, let us enter into our time of worship as Kathy Darlington lights our chalice.
We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, the loving heart, and the radiant spirit. Encendamos este caliz para celebrar el Unitarismo Universalismo. Esta es la iglesia de la mente abierta, de las manos amigas, del amor del corazón y del espíritu radiante.
Harambe, Abarigani. This means welcome. What's the news? Today we gather together to celebrate Kwanzaa. We give thanks for the harvest, which brings us good food from the earth like fruits and vegetables. We remember the past and our ancestors who worked the earth to grow the food to feed us and other animals. We celebrate the wisdom of our elders, our children, and the guidance of parents and other adults in our families and communities. Today, we raise up the hope we see in the strength of our young people and in the trust we see in the eyes of our children. While we are looking back today, we also commemorate the promise for the years to come. We're going to invite everybody now to sing Wade in the Water, hymn number 210. The hymn. So, where did the celebration called Kwanzaa come from? And how is it celebrated? First, Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by a college professor, Dr. Ron Karenga, during the Black Power movement to honor African-American people, their struggles, heritage, and culture. Second, what do people do when they celebrate Kwanzaa? Well, they might decorate their homes with the colors of Kwanzaa, red, black, and green. Or they might display Kwanzaa symbols like a basket of fruits and vegetables for the harvest, ears of corn that represent children, a unity cup to pour libations to the ancestors. Also, people who celebrate Kwanzaa might light candles to represent the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. We're going to see that right now with the help of some of our wonderful children from Paint Branch.
Umoja, we strive for togetherness with our families and communities. Umoja, 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 umoja.
The second principle of Kwanzaa is kujichagulia, self-determination. This means choosing for yourself, trusting in yourself, and being able to follow your purpose despite obstacles or difficulty. For example, I use kujichagulia when I Irish dance. I set goals for Irish dance, work hard to accomplish these goals, even though the goal can be hard. I keep going when I feel I'm falling behind, and with persistence catch up. I saw my mom use kujichagulia when she is constantly tired from all the Zoom calls she attends because she wants to stick with her clients. I see my teacher use it when she wakes up at 4 a.m. to look over our assignments and post new ones. And finally, I see my dad get stressed with work, but he carries on because he believes in his goals.
This candle for collective work and responsibility.
Ujamaa means cooperative economics. It is about building your own businesses and profiting together. We can live Ujamaa by buying from Black-owned businesses.
I like this candle for purpose.
Kuumba means creating. An example is when my sister Caroline draws with paints because she draws anything that comes to mind and that is not mostly copying something.
Imani. I light this candle for faith. We believe in ourselves, our communities, and the people around us. Imani is celebrated on the 7th and final day of Kwanzaa, and is a day of self-reflection. 3 questions to ask oneself are, who am I? Am I really who I say I am? And am I all that I ought to be?
It takes a village. Children are an important part of our village. Thanks to our children and their parents for their contributions to our service today. The children were Amethyst Contreras, Onyx Contreras, Fallon Hughes, Walter Darlington Amala, Caroline Ritz, Layla Darlington Amala, Bennett Ritz, and Johnny Katz. In addition to getting together to sing, tell stories, and play games, another feature of Kwanzaa is looking back at the past year to think about or assess what we did or didn't do at home or in the larger community. What are our thoughts about what has happened and what is happening now? Today, persons from our Paint Branch community will share their thoughts about the topic, Sankofa, looking back to find hope to begin anew. We will also have a video presentation of Lift Every Voice and Sing from our Chalice dancers, led by Sharon Worth, the artistic director.
Thank you, Carmelita. And now let us join our hearts and minds in a time of prayer and meditation. As we gather in community, we carry with us life's hurts and its great joys. Sometimes sharing these joys and concerns in community can help. You're now welcome to share your written, personal joys and sorrows by entering them into the chat as David plays I Wish I Knew How by Billy Taylor and Dick Dallas. As Carmelita said, this morning we'll have 3 speakers, Margaret Morrison, Muriel Morrissey, and Lula Beatty, as well as musical and dance performances. And now I invite our first speaker, Margaret Morrison, to share with us.
Good morning. Sankofa, a Ghanaian metaphysical symbol, is described as a bird with feet planted firmly forward, with its head turned backward, taking an egg from its back. The egg symbolizes the wisdom of the past carried carefully into the future. In August of 1964, Mr. Marquette Fry, a Black motorist, was pulled over by a white policeman in the Los Angeles Watts community. The ensuing confrontation led to what is now known as the Watts riot. As a consequence of this event, Mr. Mulani Karinga created Kwanzaa in 1966 to celebrate, unite, and empower the Black community. Kwanzaa, like Sankofa, requires one to explore our past, present, and future. How do we empower a people whose lives are diminished by the mythology of white supremacy, threatened with police brutality, and disenfranchised with deliberate precision? These are not three separate issues, but a seamless narrative that threads its way through the lives of Black Americans with a lethalness that becomes psychologically crippling, economically debilitating, physically exhausting, and politically challenging. White America has made being Black a burden for Black people. In his book, The Souls of Black Folk, W.E.B. Du Bois describes this burden as double consciousness, two warring ideals in one dark body whose dogged strength alone keep it from being torn asunder. Kwanzaa recognizes those dogged strengths as attributes. Kwanzaa principles inform. In 1963, James Baldwin wrote to his nephew, "You come from a long line of great poets, some of the greatest poets since Homer. One of them said, 'The very time I thought I was lost, my dungeon shook and my chains fell off.' Kwanzaa principles reaffirm. We recognize our humanity, our very presence in ways that so many in the white community will not. This is the message of Baby Suggs, a character in Toni Morrison's Beloved. Black lives matter. Kwanzaa principles honor. We offer tributes to our enslaved ancestors who radiated hope in the throes of despair, saw silver linings amidst trials and tribulations. And still I rise, wrote Maya Angelou. Kwanzaa principles inspire. Our children see us participating in our representative democracy, getting in good trouble, and understand that ballot power is the ultimate power, now more than ever. On Saturday, December 12, 2020, a mob of white nationalists marched in downtown DC, destroying property, protesting the Biden-Harris election. They were not deemed thugs, looters, lowlife, as would have been the case if Blacks had committed the same acts. The Blackness is what is condemned, not the crime, wrote W.E.B. Du Bois in his 1921 Dark Water, Voices from Within the Veil. We learn from the past. Looking back can be painful, but it also provides evidence of the progress we have made. The first Black president, the first Black first lady, the first Black U.S. Attorney General, the first Black and first female to become vice president. Red Georgia turned blue. Purple, maybe. Today, I am figuratively holding Sankofa's symbolic egg, carrying the wisdom of the past carefully into the future with full realization that my pendulum of despair is followed by hope. I have hope that the new Senate will pass the George Floyd Justice Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and will designate lynching as a federal hate crime by passing the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. But that hope is mingled with despair. Kwanzaa was born as a result of centuries-old police and Black internecine interaction. 56 years later, the senseless and deeply troubling crucifixion of Mr. George Floyd has sparked another movement. Seemingly, for the first time, many white people witness this particular murder, internalize the trauma long experienced by the Black community, and decided to join the protest movement, adding their voices to those demanding racial justice and equality. Is this the movement that ushers in the hope to begin anew? Together, we can begin anew, again, with each day clean, a fresh dawn.
Thank you, Margaret. Now we'll hear Ella's song performed by Bernice Johnson Reagan, performed by Sweet Honey in the Rock and the Vocal Lessons Chorus. We ask you to follow their instructions and go ahead and sing along. Stay on mute, but let your downstairs neighbors hear you.
This next song that we're going to do with the choir is called Ella's Song. It's named for Ella Baker. Ella Baker was a staunch fighter, a staunch advocate for young people and their involvement in the civil rights movement, one who would sit for hours and listen as young people discussed and debated strategies for how they would move next in whatever direction they decided they wanted to go. These are Ella Baker's words. They were set to music by Bernice Johnson Reagan, Ella's Song.
Now these are some very strong words we're saying here, so it means we need everyone to sing with us. The chorus. I'm going to teach you the chorus. I want you to sing it back to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Now, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. That's good, but it's weak. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now. There's a lot of freedoms being threatened. Think about it. Here we go. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Good. Now Carol and I will sing the verses, and when it's your turn, come in nice and strong. Ready? Whenever you are. Until the killing of black men, black mothers, sons, is as important as the killing of a white man, a white mother's son. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No, no, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. You know, that which touches me most is that I had the chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. To me, young people come first. They have the courage of where we fail. And if I could but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, we who believe, come on, we cannot rest. Say it like you know it now. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand and fight it is the only way our struggle survives. I'm a woman who speaks
Hope you'll sing along. Now, Muriel Morrissey will share her reflections on Sankofa. You are muted, Muriel.
Okay, sorry. To me, Sankofa calls for reflecting on the lessons my parents and ancestors provided. I've been incredibly fortunate. My parents and ancestors were full of hope for the future and willing to move into it boldly, taking on new challenges and opportunities. Their lives proved that one can begin anew. We don't have the full story of all of my ancestors, but we know that 2 of my great-grandfathers were born into slavery. Yet after emancipation, they became leaders of their communities and even prospered, owning their own homes and sending some of their children to college, even their daughters. My maternal grandfather was already 70 years old and nearing retirement when I was born. But one of my strongest childhood memories is seeing him at a typewriter each day, writing an autobiographical novel. He was in his 90s when he flew in an airplane for the first time. Asked about the experience, he said, "I'll never travel any other way." My parents, born in 1913 and 1915, were role models for educational achievement, community service, political engagement, and a willingness to take risks. At 42, my father welcomed a career opportunity that meant leaving North Carolina, where he was born and had spent his entire life, and taking on the challenges of a new work environment in Philadelphia. I remember how excited he was about what lay ahead after he returned home from the interview. My mother was well into her 40s when she decided to pursue a master's degree. I remember how hard she worked, especially on the required statistics course that she hated. I was nearly 40 when my son was born. When I decided at the age of 44 to pursue a new career path as a law professor, my parents had both been dead for years, but I know they would have cheered me on. And I was in my 50s when I decided to remarry, as my father was when he married my stepmother. If my parents and ancestors were alive, I believe they'd be telling me that even when things seem bleak, there is reason to be hopeful. Having been enslaved didn't stop my great-grandfathers from achieving extraordinary things. Jim Crow didn't stop my grandparents from living full, satisfying lives. My parents died far too young, but I'm sure they would be telling me that despite this dreadful pandemic, there are reasons to be hopeful about the future. Part of their reason to be hopeful would undoubtedly be their friends. They made friendship a high art, enriching their lives by maintaining close relationships with people they knew as children or met in college. One of the best things about my life now is being in regular contact with friends I have known since my early childhood in North Carolina, those I met when we moved to Philadelphia, those who entered my life when I went to college, and my professional colleagues who became lifelong friends. I have already lived many more years than my parents did. I never saw what their lives would have been like in their 70s, as I am now. But looking back, I realized they were always full of hope for the future, willing to take on new challenges, and drawing strength from their many friends. I seek to follow their example.
Thank you. And now the Chalice dancers have choreographed a dance for us to accompany Lift Every Voice and Sing by James W. and J. Rosamond Johnson. The video will be shared now.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, Chalice dancers. And now I invite Lula Beatty to share her words with us.
Good morning. I am so pleased to follow the Negro National Anthem. It brings back warm memories of childhood school programs. Ubuntu is a Bantu term meaning humanity, most often translated as I am because we are. It expresses a belief in a universal bond that connects all humanity, similar to our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. To my ancestors, I am because we are. We are because you are ever with us, inspiring courage, perseverance, and most of all, hope. A few months ago, I made a painful, heart-wrenching decision that still sits heavy with me. I sold my mama's house in Hobgood, North Carolina. My mama's house was the heartbeat of our family and community. Everyone was welcome, given food, good conversation, rest, and comfort. A person visiting for the first time said it was the most peaceful house she'd ever been in. Grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces and nephews, and friends spent summers and Christmas back home on the farm, where they heard stories of our ancestors. The generation below me was devastated to learn the house would no longer be there for them. Although they no longer visited since my mother passed 6 years ago, the house was symbolic of a connection to our shared past, representing a place of refuge and encouragement. In August, a group of us, including the oldest grandchild and the youngest great-great-grandchild, made our last pilgrimage home, where we called our ancestors' names, poured libations, shared memories and lessons learned, collected soil, and most importantly, thanked our ancestors for the love, courage, faith, and hope they gave through their example. Although the Touchstone house is gone, the spirit of our ancestors still guides us. About 2 months ago, I became a member of the board of the Clotilda Descendants Association. The Clotilda is the last known American slave ship recently found, a ship that brought over 110 young African men and women in 1860, a ship sent to defy our country's half-hearted order to no longer actively engage in the slave trade. Barracoon, the story of the last Black cargo, written by Zora Neale Hurston, finally released in 2018, tells the story of Kasala, African name, Cudjoe Lewis, American name, one of the 110. A friend of mine got me involved in this new organization. He is a direct descendant of Cudjoe's friend Kibi, another of the 110. I get to see the sense of identity, pride, and responsibility that one gains when you know where you really come from, what your mother tongue really is, where your home really is. I get to see that truth endures and can rise when we least expect it. I get to see hope. It gives me hope that this kind of revelation will continue to happen. Last month, I officially joined Paint Branch with the hope that I have found a new community full of like-minded people who will lift me, inspire me, give me a new spiritual home. Soft as the voice of an angel, breathing a lesson unheard, hope with a gentle persuasion whispers her comforting word. Wait till the darkness is over. Wait till the tempest is done. Hope for the sunshine tomorrow after the shower is gone. Whispering hope, oh, how welcoming thy voice, making my heart in its sorrow rejoice. These are words from one of my favorite hymns, Whispering Hope by Bill Gaither. I've never really had to look for hope. Hope is a gift given to me in the past by my ancestors, family, friends, communities, activists, artists. Hope is given to me in the present by my family, friends, communities, activists, artists, and you. Hope will be given to me tomorrow by my ancestors, family, friends, communities, activists, artists, and you. I believe in hope to get me through each day, to get all of us through. I must admit, however, that my hope for good, truth, and justice has been tested over my lifetime and over the last 4 years in particular. I've entered a new phase of my life, post-retirement, fewer years in front of me than behind me. But I've been renewed, finding new homes, new opportunities, new memories, new hope. The Sankofa bird looks back, moves forward, carrying something in its beak. An egg is often said, a symbol of life, a symbol of hope. What do I carry in my beak? I'm not convinced that we always know what we carry. I can only hope for me that it's something for the good. For my family, I think I carry memory of our ancestors' names, stories, values, dreams, and yes, hopes. I'm working on memorializing that. And I'm working on trying to figure out what else of value I should carry for my family and communities, and what I should drop from my beak. I'm hopeful that there are flocks of Sankofa birds, each bird carrying something we collectively need for a better future. What are you carrying in your beak?
Thank you, Lula. And thank you again, Margaret and Muriel, Carmelita. I'm so glad that I get to be a part of the service with these amazing women and with the children and youth we heard from earlier. And I'm glad to celebrate Kwanzaa. My family has always traveled to visit relatives over the holidays. So this is my first PBUUC Kwanzaa. In fact, this is my first time being part of any Kwanzaa celebration. I grew up in a small town with no Black families. I mean, literally 0 Black families. I didn't grow up with anyone who celebrated Kwanzaa. I only heard it mentioned every now and then, alongside Hanukkah maybe, as something that other people might do in December. There were no Jewish synagogues in my hometown either. Watching our children tell us about the Kwanzaa principles, listening to the moving words from Margaret and Muriel and Lula today, and looking back in the spirit of Sankofa, I realized that I'm in the middle. Our congregation's kids are learning about Kwanzaa and African-American history and culture from this community, right from the start. And this morning, we've heard important stories from Black women who have a wealth of experience and wisdom to share from their own lives. I'm in the middle here with a few gray hairs and maybe some experiences worth passing down, but what I know of African American history and culture is mostly just bits and pieces from here and there. I'm going to share one specific example, Nikki Giovanni. During our rehearsal for this service a few weeks ago, someone mentioned Nikki Giovanni, as if everyone there would know who she is. Now, I did know that Nikki Giovanni is a notable American poet, but the first time I remember hearing her name wasn't until 2005. That was on Kanye West's track, Hey Mama, where he lovingly compared his hardworking mother to the poetry of Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni. I don't remember learning about Nikki Giovanni growing up, and I myself haven't and probably never will experience many of the things she writes about. Some things are different for my kids. My kids are growing up with Black friends and classmates and neighbors and teachers. A few days after that service rehearsal, my daughter's middle school English class read Nikki Giovanni's A Poem for My Librarian, Mrs. Long. I overheard some of the lessons since the kids are doing virtual school from home. I learned that Nikki Giovanni was born in Knoxville, which is where my wife is from and somewhere I spend a lot of time. In fact, I'm here in Knoxville right now. I'm pretty sure I've seen the now historic JFG sign that she mentions in the poem. Even being that close to her past, I hadn't learned much about Nikki Giovanni until now. Turns out that my in-laws have a book of her poetry on a table here in Knoxville, and I just hadn't picked it up before. Thinking back about how scattered and haphazard my own education has been when it comes to African American history and culture, I think it's good that we do this. I think it's good that we deliberately take time to celebrate Kwanzaa. There's so much that I never learned growing up, things that are a matter of everyday life to many of you in this congregation. I'm still learning. I still need to read more and listen more and take more opportunities to do things like be part of this Kwanzaa service. And I'm hopeful, seeing that my kids will know more than I did. I'm glad this congregation has so many stories to learn from. I'm thankful that we can celebrate Kwanzaa together today. Now we will take this morning's offering. The mission of this church carries on in these uncertain times and is more important than ever. We're so grateful to have the financial support of our members and friends. Please give as generously as you are able. Phil will post the information for giving to PBUUC in the chat window. This information can also be found in the online order of service. David will play our offertory, Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around, a traditional African-American spiritual as arranged by Rollo Dilworth.
Thank you, David. It was great. In closing, I want to say, use words from Barbara Peskin that you will find in our hymnal, as a matter of fact, number 680. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. So let us go forth remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily, and to bow to the mystery.
I will now extinguish the chalice. Please join us for coffee and conversation from the safety of your own homes in breakout rooms after the service. Thank you.
And if you'd like to stay for the facilitated reverberations discussion, please click decline on the invitation to a breakout room. If you'd like to have a smaller group discussion, then accept that invitation to the breakout room. And now, Mary, over to you to drum us out.